He needs a critical friend. He needs someone who's not part of his information bubble, giving him tough love, talking him through these decisions. You feel that this is from his lens, from his echo chamber, and they're not seeing the bigger picture. And I think there possibly is, long answer to your question, there is possibly a way back. Some of the most surprising things have happened. And I think that we should remain focused on that. And as he should remain focused on a lot of the issues that happen in this country, particularly the suffering people have in an issue. That his pain is his pain, but there's a myriad of issues that often he doesn't consider, and I think that's where the problem is. And with good people around him, maybe there would be a path to come back, but I don't think they've got it, and that team that they really need to forge that path back.
Prince Harry says his father, King Charles, won't speak to him amid his legal battle to try to regain taxpayer-funded security whenever he's in the UK. The Duke of Sussex yesterday lost his Court of Appeal bid to overturn a 2020 Home Office decision to downgrade the level of security he receives after he stepped down as a working royal. Speaking to the BBC, Prince Harry also said he's hoping for reconciliation with his father and has called on the government to intervene.
I would ask the Prime Minister to step in. I would ask Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, to look at this very, very carefully, and I would ask her to review RAVEC and its members, because if it is an expert body, then what is the royal household's role there if it isn't to influence and decide what they want for the members of their household?
Well, Mark Borkowski is a PR expert. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Harry's brand, his reputation is now for doing these sort of heartfelt broadcast interviews.
Yes, and he's incredibly good at it. Whether it's a good idea, I don't know. But, clearly this is a profound soap opera. This is a family of hurts. I mean, he uses and opens up his heart in a visceral sense. And I think this is what ultimately has led to this problem. He left this country in his more famous flight to freedom. He obviously is incredibly wounded. I, for one, remember this young boy having to march behind his mother's coffin. I mean, he is a wounded individual, but he's taken to using these things to identify the pain of being the spare. And I think that if you watch the 3-minute or 4-minute edit of this as opposed to the full length, the sound bites are just what the modern media and social media want, but it slightly takes it all out of context of actually what he's saying.
What do you mean by that? Because the context to me seems pretty clear, that he seems frustrated, sad, upset, that he wants reconciliation, but the royal family isn't willing to meet him on that.
Well, that's the point, but that's not quite how most of the sort of Twitter sphere, or the X sphere now, and TikTok and soundbites are reporting it. They're choosing to take bits out of this. You're right, you're correct, there's no doubt about that. But he's talking about personal protection. He's talking about to a certain extent, how vulnerable he is. Now, look, I'm no apologist for this guy. I think he did some very ill-advised things, and particularly in his autobiography, Spare, where he talked about his career in the army, which actually, in my sense, put an X on his back. But he's asking for a review that he hasn't had since 2019, which I think is right. And I think he is vulnerable. We've seen the world is a very dangerous place for him. And although he might not be a working royal, he was born into a family, and to a certain extent, he deserves it. I mean, what he wants to do with that security and come back while the royal family, and particularly his brother, has had a sensational week this week, who are getting on with their job. But you always felt that Harry was built for service, and there was something more that he wants to do. And I think his buyer's remorse on what he's done. He's out of place in California. He's lost, and he's projecting this loss as an individual. As I said, he's created his reality, and I'm afraid he's trying to escape from that reality. And I think there should be some level of security, because from a PR point of view, if God forbid the worst thing happened to him, how would it look on the British establishment, if he was subject to some appalling atrocity? He is a target.
I wonder if this damages the royal family at large, and particularly the king, because the suggestion, again, one of the other parts of this, is that he says he doesn't know how long his father has in reference to his illness and his cancer. And he also says that that his father, he would love reconciliation. There's no point continuing to fight anymore. Life is precious, says Prince Harry. But he says the king isn't open to speaking about that. Does that damage the king?
Look, I think we all know from the Queen, her stoic nature, that service came first, the country came first, her job came first, and I think the king is in that shadow, and I think that that's what comes first, and I think that's the pain really that as a father I would feel for an estranged son, that he's created all this chaos, and there's very little way back for him at the moment. But I think people understand the way the monarchy, the royal family, the firm, whatever you describe them, work, and there'll be no surprises. The problem is that Harry is a communicator for the modern age, and he uses these visceral moments as many YouTubers and podcasters and TikTokers do at the moment. And to a certain extent, it is such a shame when the royal family is slimmed down, going through their own health issues, that there isn't this guy in their midst who actually has a lot to offer. Unfortunately, the elephant in the room is his wife, and the way that she goes about her image, and what they're trying to do is build their brand. And I think that, many would say you can't have your cake and eat it. You did leave. You made a very spectacular job of it in terms of these sort of interviews. And so you're left in a quagmire at the moment. And it's a quagmire of emotion. And anybody would see that this is a gut reaction, which the royal family are very good at actually not showing this level of emotion and getting on with the job, as we've seen with the Royal Tour in Scotland this week.
If Harry is a target, as you say, Mark, if he wants reconciliation, if he is pointing to the royal family as being the stumbling block in all of that, does it suggest that this family is actually irretrievable, is irreconcilable at this point, that actually even love can't overcome this in a family context?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? Can love conquer all in a family? I'm not sure. I mean, service in this country comes first, and he is disruptive. He has views, and even when he was talking about, First Nations and truth and reconciliation, he emphasised on the fact of truth. Now, the truth is Harry's truth. Reconciliation is different from a reconciliation and truth. I still think he, deep down, is wounded by that and wants some recognition for his pain. He certainly, rambles on about that in his book. But I just think we look at events now in the lens of the now, the 24/7 media. Here we are commenting about it. Yeah. How will this look to a younger generation, 10, 20 years on? How will his brother cope with this situation when he is king? And in a way that I think that he's a lost individual for the family. But what he needs, what I've always felt in terms of, I've talked about this on countless times, he needs a critical friend. He needs someone who's not part of his information bubble, giving him tough love, talking him through these decisions. You feel that this is from his lens, from his echo chamber, and they're not seeing the bigger picture. And I think there possibly is, long answer to your question, there is possibly a way back. Some of the most surprising things have happened. And I think that we should remain focused on that. And as he should remain focused on a lot of the issues that happen in this country, particularly the suffering people have in an issue, that his pain is his pain, but there's a myriad of issues that often he doesn't consider, and I think that's where the problem is. And with good people around him, maybe there would be a path to come back, but I don't think they've got it, and that team that they really need to forge that path back.
Mark, thank you very much. Thank you for joining us this morning. That is Mark Borkowski, who is a PR expert.
So it's going to cost him about £1.5 million in legal costs, the loss of this court case. But also, I mean, The Netflix deal, which Meghan and Harry signed, was for a reported $100 million. If he's worried about his security, it does seem like he does have money. Maybe he could pay for his own security.
Yes, as a
morally, he might think that's wrong. But if
Sure.
it's about coming to reconcile with the family, wanting to come to Britain, which clearly made it sound in that interview that he misses coming to Britain, he wants to bring his family here. That could be a potential solution here.
Wendy gets in touch to say, Harry chose to leave. You make your bed, you lie in it. No sympathy. Why would the royal family speak to him when it will be on social media within 2 hours?
Mike says the only thing Harry's achieved is that he's made his dad's cancer all about Harry again. I think his dad has other things to worry about rather than Harry's grievances.
And Mick in Shrewsbury says, on Harry, if he wants protection, he should work and pay for it himself. He's selfish.
Not a lot of sympathy
No,
out there
there's not.
this morning for Prince Harry.